Welcome to a world where the absurd meets the amazing, and reality is sometimes stranger than fiction. Let's dive into some facts that will make you scratch your head and question the logic behind history, science, and technology. From online learning platforms that might judge your procrastination to terrifying ancient migraine remedies and a radioactive lake that's more dangerous than your worst nightmare, these facts will make you laugh, cringe, and wonder what on earth was going on in the past. Hold on to your curiosity because things are about to get wild. Sea urchins use their water vascular system for movement and self-defense, but they also have tiny jaw-like structures called Aristotle's lantern. These weird little mouthpieces continuously scrape away at surfaces, which means if a sea urchin ever had access to your furniture, it would turn your table into sawdust just for fun. The longest time someone has juggled 3 objects is over 12 hours. Imagine dedicating half a day to keeping things in motion without dropping them, while most of us can't even keep our lives together for 10 minutes without a mistake. This is why jugglers are wizards with hand-eye coordination. Paper jams were a personal attack. Early printers seem to have a secret grudge against humanity, jamming at the worst possible moment. Important deadline? Paper jam. Printing a final project? Paper jam. Trying to impress your boss? Paper jam. Fixing it required the delicate hand of a surgeon, or else the entire machine would explode into a mess of torn paper and crushed dreams. Hunger pangs can happen even when you're full. Sometimes your stomach just doesn't get the memo that you ate, especially if your meal lacked protein or fat. It's like a spoiled kid asking for dessert when dinner just ended. So if you've ever felt starving right after a meal, your stomach isn't empty. It's just a lying, bottomless pit of deception. Llamas communicate by humming, and each hum has a different meaning. Some hums signal relaxation, while others mean, I'm annoyed and about to ruin your day. If you ever hear a llama humming aggressively at you, just know that you might be seconds away from a face full of llama loogie. Studies suggest that the uncanny valley effect plays a huge role in coulrophobia. Clowns look almost human, but their exaggerated features and unnatural expressions make the brain scream, nope! That's definitely a demon in a party wig. Thanks to horror movies like It and Poltergeist, many people associate clowns with terror rather than fun. At this point, clowns have scared more children than vegetables and bedtime combined. In 1993, the Coca-Cola vending machine riot broke out in Mexico City when a power outage made all the vending machines dispense free Coke. People stormed the streets like it was the end of civilization, looting soda like it was liquid gold. Who knew free soft drinks could turn a city into an action movie? In 1919, Boston experienced the Great Molasses Flood when a giant storage tank exploded, sending a 25-foot wave of sticky molasses through the streets at 35 miles per hour. People and horses got trapped, buildings collapsed, and for years locals swore the city smelled like pancakes. Imagine explaining to your insurance company that your house drowned in syrup. A single game of solitaire helped shape the future of computers. When Microsoft included solitaire in Windows 3.0, they claimed it was just for entertainment. In reality, it was secretly training office workers to use a mouse. That's right, your wasted time playing solitaire was actually Bill Gates' way of turning you into a computer expert. In 1895, the first ever recorded car crash in the US involved exactly one car, crashing into a tree. There were no other cars on the road, yet the driver still managed to hit the only obstacle in sight. This accident set the tone for over a century of people somehow managing to crash in completely empty parking lots. Greenland has a high literacy rate despite only having one university. With a literacy rate of over 99%, Greenland proves you don't need a bunch of fancy schools to be educated. The entire country has one university, meaning you either study there or travel thousands of miles for college. Good luck with student life when your nearest bookstore is next to a glacier. Your face might seem to be in perfect symmetry, but in reality, it is almost symmetrical. If it were, you'd look so eerily perfect that people might assume you were an android. Studies show that humans prefer symmetrical faces because they suggest good genes. But since no one is truly symmetrical, we all just walk around with slightly lopsided charm instead. A spring in Mexico called El Zacaton is so deep scientists haven't fully explored it. This thing is basically the abyss of natural springs, and divers once sent a robot down to map it, only for the robot to mysteriously vanish. Either the spring is hiding ancient secrets, or the water itself just decided it didn't like company. In the early days, NASA considered giving astronauts carbonated drinks, but zero gravity made the gas build up in their stomachs, causing uncontrollable burping. Space burps are special because, thanks to microgravity, they come with surprise liquid reflux. Nothing like floating around in a $100 billion space station while fighting a rogue bubble of soda and regret. Your eyes see the world upside down and your brain flips the image so you don't walk around thinking you live in an M.C. Escher painting. If you wore special glasses that flipped everything, your brain would eventually essentially just accept it, meaning you could rewire yourself to see the world as a permanent handstand. Romanesco broccoli is nature's way of showing off its math skills. Its spirals follow the Fibonacci sequence, forming a mesmerizing fractal pattern. Basically, if a mathematician and a vegetable had a baby, this would be the result. You can eat it, but deep down, you know you're destroying one of nature's most impressive geometric flexes. The first gas stoves were introduced in the early 1800s, but people refused to use them because they thought gas was an invisible demon waiting to explode in their kitchens. Turns out they weren't entirely wrong. Early models were so unpredictable they could turn a simple breakfast into a fireball of regret. Some online learning platforms use AI to track your progress, which means your course knows exactly how long you stared at that one question before giving up. In the future, AI tutors might even roast you for skipping lessons. Imagine a virtual teacher saying, "Oh, back again? Maybe this time you'll actually finish the module instead of binge-watching cat videos." Sunlight is basically a time traveler. The light we see from the sun is already 8 minutes and 20 seconds old by the time it reaches Earth. If the sun suddenly vanished, we wouldn't even notice until those last rays of light finished their journey. Imagine realizing your heat source quit 8 minutes ago. Talk about a delayed breakup. Theorists believe that some sort of plague demon has its wings spread on humanity. For evidence, they argue that in 1720, 1820, 1920, and 2020, the world experienced major pandemics, leading conspiracy theorists to believe there's some kind of plague curse every 100 years. While history probably isn't on a strict doomsday timer, the pattern is weird enough to make you reconsider your life choices every time a new century rolls around. The Buddhist holiday of Vesak, which celebrates Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and passing, often involves people releasing caged birds as a symbol of freedom. It's a beautiful gesture, except sometimes the birds aren't native to the area, and instead of flying to freedom, they just get confused or eaten by predators. Nature's way of keeping things balanced. There's a theme park in Lithuania called Stalin World, where the main attraction is Soviet oppression. Officially named Grutas Park, it features statues of Lenin, Stalin, and communist relics in a grim amusement setting. Nothing screams fun day out like walking through a park dedicated to government surveillance and labor camps. Who needs roller coasters when you have historical existential dread? Uruguay won the first ever FIFA World Cup in 1930. Not only did they host the tournament, but they also won it. Then, just to flex on the world, they won again in 1950, beating Brazil in a match so devastating that some Brazilian fans reportedly fainted from shock. To this day, Uruguayans proudly display 4 stars on their jerseys, 2 for the World Cups and 2 for earlier Olympic football victories. Uruguay's former president was the world's poorest leader. José Mujica, who served from 2010 to 2015, donated around 90% of his salary to charity and lived on a small farm instead of a presidential mansion. He drove an old VW Beetle. He managed to run a country and still was more relatable than most politicians with private jets and gold-plated everything. The water vascular system in echinoderms like sea stars is a built-in hydraulic system that makes them the weirdest plumbers of the ocean. Instead of blood, they pump seawater through their bodies to move, eat, and even breathe. Imagine if humans worked that way. We'd need to chug a gallon of water just to take a step. Hunger can make you an emotional disaster. Ever been so hungry you almost started a fight over something ridiculous? That's because low blood sugar makes your brain act like a glitchy computer, turning minor inconveniences into full-blown crises. If you ever yelled at a vending machine for eating your dollar, don't worry, it wasn't you. It was the hunger gremlin controlling your actions. Bonsai trees can outlive their full-sized counterparts, with some specimens being over 1,000 years old. Imagine dedicating your life to watering and trimming a single tree, only for it to look at you like, "Nice try, but I'll outlast your entire family." Some of these ancient bonsais have been passed down for generations, making them the ultimate family heirloom. VPNs were originally made for businesses, not for people hiding from hackers or binge-watching region-locked TV shows. In the 1990s, Microsoft developed the first VPN-like technology to let employees securely access company files remotely. Now, thanks to VPNs, people can pretend to be working while actually streaming their favorite shows from a secure connection. Hiking in Hawaii's Haiku Stairs is illegal, which makes it even more tempting. The Stairway to Heaven is a steep 322-step climb that is technically closed to the public. That hasn't stopped daredevils from sneaking in at 3 a.m., dodging guards, and climbing a staircase that looks like it was built by a very ambitious lunatic. Some countries treat VPNs as serious crimes against humanity and outright ban them. China, Russia, and North Korea have strict restrictions, treating VPN use like a high-tech form of espionage. Meanwhile, in other places, VPNs are just tools for people trying to get cheaper flights or pretending to be in another country to access better movie libraries. Denmark once had a theme park dedicated to Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales, but many rides were just a bit too real. For example, the Little Mermaid ride didn't have a happy ending, because in the original story, she turns into sea foam. Nothing says family fun like being reminded that classic fairy tales were full of existential doom. If you love bizarre history and absurd facts like this, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel because, unlike the mermaid, we won't vanish into foam anytime soon. Juggling has been around for at least 4,000 years. Ancient Egyptian tomb paintings show people tossing balls in the air, like early-day circus performers. Either they were entertainers or the first recorded instance of someone failing to keep their groceries in one hand and simultaneously avoiding a fall. There are hydraulic presses so powerful that they need their own foundations to prevent them from sinking into the ground. This means someone, somewhere, has built a machine so heavy and destructive that the Earth itself struggles to hold it. If that's not peak human engineering, I don't know what is. Migraines aren't just headaches. They're full-blown sensory rebellions. Along with pain, they can bring nausea, light sensitivity, and even temporary blindness. Some unlucky people even experience Alice in Wonderland syndrome, where objects look bigger or smaller than they really are. Imagine trying to eat a sandwich that suddenly looks the size of a car. Migraines really know how to ruin lunch. Some ancient treatments for migraines were absolutely terrifying. In medieval times, people thought drilling a hole in the skull, called trepanation, could relieve the pain, because obviously the best way to treat a headache is to let some fresh air into your brain. Today, we have medicine, but if migraines keep getting worse, some sufferers might start reconsidering the medieval approach. Nomophobia is the fear of being without your phone, which means half the population is technically living in pure terror every time their battery hits 1%. The horror of losing Wi-Fi, missing a text, or gas, having to actually talk to someone in real life is enough to send some people into a full-blown panic attack. Marie Curie basically carried radioactive material around like it was candy. The woman who discovered radium used to keep glowing vials of it in her pockets for fun. Nobody knew about radiation poisoning back then, so her lab notebooks are still so radioactive that scientists today have to wear protective gear just to read her notes. That's dedication, mixed with a little bit of madness. Bananas are radioactive and you're eating them anyway. Thanks to their potassium-40 content, bananas emit a tiny amount of radiation. Don't panic. Eating a few won't turn you into a mutant, but if you stack enough of them in one place, you could theoretically set off a radiation detector. This means your breakfast might be technically nuclear, but at least it's high in potassium. The ace wasn't always the most powerful card. Before the French Revolution, kings were always the highest-ranking cards because, well, monarchy ruled everything. But after people got tired of kings and started chopping their heads off, the ace became the top card in many games, because nothing says power to the people like a deck of playing cards. North Korea claims a perfect literacy rate, but with a twist. The government proudly states that 100% of its citizens can read and write. However, their reading material is almost entirely about the supreme leader. If your first word as a baby is glorious revolution, and your bedtime stories are government propaganda, does that really count as literacy or just really aggressive brainwashing? Playing cards were once considered dangerously sinful. In medieval Europe, some religious leaders were convinced that card games were a one-way ticket to moral corruption. They thought shuffling a deck was summoning the devil. Ironically, many of these early decks were hand-painted by monks, proving that even holy men needed a break from chanting all day. Some cultures believe mirrors steal souls, which makes selfies extremely problematic. Ancient superstitions claimed that mirrors could trap a person's spirit, which is why breaking one supposedly brings bad luck. If that's true, modern phone cameras have probably turned half the population into spiritual hostages, doomed to exist forever in the cloud. Mirrors can technically trap light forever, making them the universe's most useless hoarders. If you position two mirrors perfectly facing each other, light bounces between them indefinitely unless something disrupts it. This means a little piece of light from years ago could still be bouncing in there, probably wondering why it hasn't been invited to leave. Alcatraz prisoners used soap, hair, and papier-mâché to fake their own heads. The famous Alcatraz escape involved inmates making fake heads and placing them in their beds to fool guards. While most people struggle with arts and crafts, these guys managed to create full-blown sculptures just to break out. The guards probably had nightmares about those creepy fake faces. Octopuses learn through boredom-fueled destruction. When stuck in captivity, octopuses will start dismantling their tanks just to see what happens. Some have even learned to short-circuit aquarium lights by spraying water at electrical outlets. If they ever evolve further, we're looking at a future where octopuses overthrow humanity one unplugged power strip at a time. Ancient civilizations had literacy rates so low that people literally paid scribes to read and write for them. In ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, literacy was a rare skill, and professional scribes were the equivalent of today's lawyers. Except instead of drafting contracts, they spent their time writing down gossip and royal complaints. Imagine needing a professional just to send a text message. The oldest known playing cards originated in China. Long before the world knew poker, blackjack, or solitaire, the Chinese were already enjoying card games as early as the 9th century. These early cards resembled paper money, meaning that a game of cards could quickly escalate into a game of bankruptcy if you weren't cautious. Plutonium is so unstable that it can randomly catch fire. This radioactive metal doesn't just sit around politely, it oxidizes in air and can spontaneously combust if it's not stored correctly. In other words, plutonium isn't just toxic, it's also a drama queen that might randomly burst into flames if it feels like it. Scientists have to handle it like it's an angry, glowing gremlin. Llamas have a built-in alarm system. They scream when they sense danger. And by scream, I mean an absolutely unholy, high-pitched shriek that sounds like a banshee stubbed its toe. If a burglar ever tries to sneak up on a llama farm, they'll regret their life choices immediately. Dot matrix printers had the patience of a sloth. Printing one page took forever, and the end result looked like a pixelated crime scene. If you needed to print a whole document, you had time to make coffee, drink it, contemplate the meaning of life, and still come back to find the printer, only halfway done. And heaven forbid you needed color, because that was just sorcery. Ink cartridges were treated like gold. Back in the early days, ink for printers was so expensive and rare that some businesses locked it up like a national treasure. If someone ran out of ink too soon, they were looked at with deep suspicion, because clearly printing a single-page memo was worth more than their entire salary. Paganophobia is the fear of beards. Some people break out in a cold sweat at the sight of a full, majestic beard, convinced it's hiding dark secrets, or maybe last week's lunch. If you know someone with this phobia, just know that every November, they're out there dodging bearded hipsters like it's an extreme sport. VPNs can actually increase internet speeds in some cases. Internet providers sometimes throttle bandwidth when they detect streaming or torrenting, but a VPN hides what you're doing. It's like sneaking past a lazy security guard. Your ISP has no clue what you're up to, so it can't slow you down just because you're watching too much high-definition cat content. Drip irrigation is like giving plants an IV drip. It delivers water directly to the roots, drop by drop. This method can reduce water waste by up to 60% as compared to traditional watering. It's so efficient that even desert farms can grow crops without turning the land into a mud pit. Basically, plants get a hydration plan more advanced than most humans following their drink more water resolutions. In Uruguay, cows outnumber people by nearly 4 to 1. Uruguay has about 3.5 million people, but over 12 million cows. This means that if cows ever decided to stage a rebellion, Uruguayans would be seriously outnumbered. Fortunately, the country is one of the largest beef exporters in the world, so the cows probably don't stand a chance. Your stomach isn't growling, it's throwing a tantrum. That rumbling sound when you're hungry? It's called borborygmi, and it's your stomach angrily sloshing around the air and digestive juices, demanding food like a toddler in a supermarket. Scientists say it's normal, but let's be real. Your stomach is just dramatically auditioning for a horror movie soundtrack. Someone invented a ruler that will give you a difficult time doing its one job, drawing a straight line. There's a ruler called the rolling ruler, which is supposed to help you draw straight lines quickly. The only problem? It rolls, meaning if you don't hold it exactly right, you'll get wobbly lines instead of straight ones. It's the ruler version of a prank toy. Some jails have vending machines for bail money, because freedom should be as easy as buying chips. In some places, you can pay your bail using a kiosk, just like you'd buy a candy bar. Imagine getting arrested and then just casually swiping your credit card like buying a snack. One get-out-of-jail ticket, please. Some old mirrors contain so much mercury they could straight up poison you. Before modern glass coatings, mirrors were made with mercury, which means looking at yourself too much could be hazardous to your health. Imagine just trying to check your hair and ending up hallucinating that your reflection is whispering dark secrets to you. Narcissus wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes. Goats can solve puzzles and then judge you for struggling. Scientists found that goats are excellent problem solvers and can remember solutions to complex puzzles even after a year. Meanwhile, humans forget why they walked into a room within 10 seconds. If goats had thumbs, they'd be hacking into your Wi-Fi and changing your passwords just for fun. Goats are out here solving puzzles while some of us still struggle with IKEA furniture. If you want more mind-blowing and slightly humiliating animal facts, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Who knows, maybe one day goats will be watching these videos too. right before they take over the world. In the 19th century, Sweden had higher literacy rates than some modern nations today. Sweden had nearly universal literacy in the 1800s because they required people to read before they could get married. Imagine proposing to your sweetheart only to be handed a Bible and told, "Read this or die alone." If that rule still existed today, Tinder bios would be a lot more impressive. The 4 suits in a deck have different meanings. Hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades aren't just random shapes, they represent medieval society. Hearts symbolize the clergy, diamonds were for merchants, clubs stood for peasants, and spades represented the nobility. So technically, every time you play poker, you're reenacting a mini medieval class struggle. There's a lake in Russia that's so radioactive it can kill you in an hour. Lake Karachay is so contaminated with nuclear waste that standing near it is like signing up for an instant health crisis. The Soviets used it as a dumping ground for radioactive material. Cold War era had a very loose understanding or inconsideration of environmental safety. In 2004, a cargo ship carrying thousands of rubber ducks capsized, leading to a rubber duck invasion worldwide. These yellow plastic birds washed up on beaches from Hawaii to Scotland. Even in maritime disasters, bath toys always find a way to make things ridiculous. Scientists even use them to track ocean currents. There are erasable pens that don't actually erase. Some erasable pens use heat-sensitive ink, which disappears when rubbed with friction. But if you leave your notes in a hot car, all your writing can vanish like a magic trick gone wrong. And the best part, putting your paper in the freezer can sometimes bring the ink back. So technically, you're just one ice pack away from recovering your lost homework. The US shipped billions of dollars in cash to Iraq and lost track of it. The government sent over $12 billion in cash, shrink-wrapped on pallets, to fund reconstruction efforts. A huge chunk of it vanished into thin air, probably making some warlords the proud owners of suspiciously large vaults of US bills. It was one of the biggest cases of, oops, where did our money go? In history. The Aztecs believed the sun needed fresh blood to keep rising, so they constantly made human sacrifices. They'd cut out hearts with obsidian knives, hoping their god wouldn't press the end world button. With that kind of motivation, you'd think they could have just tried a really impressive fruit basket instead. The ancient druids reportedly burned people inside giant wicker men as offerings to their gods. They built massive wooden cages, stuffed them with unlucky individuals, and set them on fire. If Hollywood ever makes an accurate historical movie about this, it'll look like a horror film with a bonfire gone way too far. Some inmates train as lawyers and actually win their own cases. There are prisoners who get so good at studying the law that they manage to overturn their own convictions. That's next level. If you want something done right, do it yourself energy. Imagine getting a life sentence, then pulling an Uno reverse card in court. The first home printers cost more than a car. In the 1980s, a decent home printer could set you back the price of a used vehicle. If you wanted to print from home, you basically had to decide between having a printer or having a roof over your head. And just when you thought you were done spending money, the ink would run out after 10 pages and demand a small fortune for a refill. Migraines can mess with your speech, making you sound like you're speaking in riddles. Some people experience temporary aphasia, where words come out jumbled or completely nonsensical. Imagine trying to order coffee and instead saying, "Please give me a flying watermelon." Juggling improves brain function by increasing gray matter, meaning every juggler is technically making themselves smarter with every toss. So while you're struggling to remember where you put your keys, some guy spinning knives in the air is actually sharpening his cognitive abilities. Life isn't fair. Umami was discovered by a Japanese scientist who just wanted to know why seaweed soup tasted so good. In 1908, Kikunai Ikeda realized that glutamate was the secret behind the addictive savoriness. So yes, a man became famous for figuring out why people couldn't stop slurping broth. Truly a scientific breakthrough worthy of eternal gratitude. Human breast milk is full of umami, meaning babies get hooked on that savory goodness before they even know what food is. That means our love for umami is hardwired from birth. So next time you see someone inhaling a plate of sushi like their life depends on it, just remember, it all started with milk. There's a whole sport called combat juggling, where jugglers try to make each other drop their balls while keeping their own in the air. It's like dodgeball, but instead of running, you're locked in a battle of skill, reflexes, and probably a deep fear of looking ridiculous when your cascade collapsed. The world's first hydraulic press was invented in the 18th century by Joseph Bramah, who probably never imagined it would one day be used to crush Lego figures for internet clout. He was trying to revolutionize the industry, but the internet just wanted to see what happens when you squish a rubber duck under extreme pressure. Avocados, the main ingredient in guacamole, were once called alligator pears because of their bumpy green skin. So technically, every time you eat guacamole, you're smashing up a reptilian fruit and calling it a delicacy. Nothing like some good old-fashioned alligator fruit paste to keep things fancy. Guacamole is so beloved that in 2007, hackers literally held a shipment of avocados hostage in Mexico. Yes, avocado piracy is real, and somewhere out there, a gang of criminals probably has a secret hideout full of guac. Imagine explaining to a judge that your master crime was stealing people's brunch topping. Some bonsai trees have been trained to grow upside down over rocks or even in surreal twisted shapes. This means people spend literal decades convincing a tree to defy gravity just for aesthetics. Meanwhile, most houseplants refuse to live more than a week because you forgot to water them once. Your body will try to trick you into eating cardboard. When hunger gets extreme, your sense of smell and taste go into overdrive, making almost anything seem edible. This is why people stranded in the wild sometimes eat tree bark. Your brain basically turns into that friend who says, "Just try it. It won't be that bad," when you clearly know it will. Some scientists believe umami was nature's way of helping ancient humans survive by guiding them toward protein-rich foods. Meanwhile, modern humans use it to justify eating an entire bag of MSG-covered chips in one sitting. Evolution had noble intentions, but we've turned umami into an excuse to drown everything in soy sauce and call it science. Some sea cucumbers take their water vascular system way too seriously. When threatened, they launch their internal organs out of their bodies like an emergency escape pod. Then they casually regenerate them later, as if violently ejecting their own guts was just another Tuesday. Meanwhile, humans cry over a stubbed toe. Mexico's spicy candy is basically a prank. Many Mexican sweets are covered in chili powder, meaning you think you're getting a nice, fruity treat, but instead your tongue gets set on fire. Some tourists try them thinking they're regular candy, only to end up questioning all their life choices. It's like Mexican candy dares you to suffer before you can enjoy it. Pencils that double as plant. Some eco-friendly pencils have seeds in their stubs, so when they get too short to use, you can plant them in the soil. In theory, you get a nice little herb garden, but in reality, most people just forget and throw them away, making them the most guilt-inducing pencils ever created. Japan made candy that screams. Some Japanese sweets called whistle candies have a hole in them that makes a loud whistling sound when you blow through it. So while kids in other countries quietly enjoy their candy, Japanese kids run around sounding like malfunctioning tea kettles. Worst part? Parents buy them willingly, knowing they'll be stuck in a house full of tiny sugar-fueled train whistles. The world's smallest stapler barely works. There are staplers the size of a thumbnail that claim to be fully functional. In reality, they jam, lose tiny staples, and require an advanced degree in engineering just to reload. But hey, they make great desk decorations for people who enjoy suffering. Pigeons can learn to read, but they don't care to use it. Researchers trained pigeons to recognize words and even differentiate between real and made-up words. However, pigeons have no practical use for this skill, meaning they could probably critique your grammar, but they'd rather steal your sandwich. They're just out here, literate and indifferent. A mirror can make your reflection look taller or shorter, depending on its shape, proving your height is a lie. A slight curve in a mirror can change how tall or wide you look, which means your bathroom mirror might be gaslighting you. Funhouse mirrors take this to an extreme, making you wonder if you're actually a stretched out spaghetti noodle or walking potato. The world's most terrifying rooftop pool isn't London. The Sky Pool is a glass-bottomed swimming pool suspended between two buildings, 10 stories high. Swimmers get the thrill of looking straight down at the street below, questioning both their life choices and the durability of glass. Some rooftops are so hot they can literally cook an egg. In places like Dubai or Las Vegas, summer temperatures turn rooftops into frying pans. Forget fancy restaurants. Just crack an egg on a rooftop and let nature take care of breakfast with a side of desert dust. Want more wild and unexpected facts? Hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more mind-blowing content. Earth is losing its lungs at an alarming speed. The Amazon rainforest, often called the lungs of the earth, is shrinking so fast that it might need an inhaler soon. At current rates of deforestation, this giant oxygen factory could turn into a barren wasteland, leaving the planet to cough its way into climate chaos. The world's most expensive chocolate is barely even chocolate. Some luxury chocolates, like La Madeleine aux Truffes, cost hundreds of dollars for a single piece. Why? Because they shove rare truffles, gold flakes, and other ridiculously expensive ingredients inside. At that point, you're not even paying for chocolate. You're paying for the privilege of eating something that costs more than your grocery bill. Polluted air can make you dumber, literally. Studies show that long-term exposure to high pollution levels is linked to cognitive decline, meaning smog might be sneakily shaving off IQ points. So if you've ever walked through a city and suddenly forgotten why you entered a store, blame the air, not your short attention span. Italy has a cake that lasts forever. Panfort, an ancient Italian dessert, is so packed with honey, nuts, and dried fruit that it can stay good for years. Yes, years. It was originally designed to survive long journeys, but at this point, it could probably outlive some civilizations. If you ever get stranded on a desert island, just bring a Panfort. It'll still be fresh when they rescue you. One prison used a Pepsi factory as a cover-up for crime. In the 1990s, a prison in Venezuela had a fake Pepsi factory inside. But instead of making soda, inmates were brewing their own alcohol and smuggling drugs. Imagine visiting for a tour and wondering why the soda smells like moonshine and regret. Uranium glass exists and it glows like something straight out of a sci-fi horror movie. Back in the 19th century, people thought, hey, let's put uranium in glassware because that seems safe. The result? Green glowing plates, cups, and even doorknobs that looked like they belonged in a haunted house. Technically, they're not super dangerous, but drinking from one still feels like a great way to develop superpowers or an extra limb. The fear of clowns is so common that even trained psychologists aren't entirely sure what causes it. Some blame their eerie painted faces, others say it's their unpredictable behavior, but honestly, it might just be the fact that no fully grown adult should enjoy wearing oversized shoes that much. Some migraines come with auras, which are basically psychedelic pre-show warnings from the brain. These auras can include flashing lights, zigzag patterns, or even ghostly blind spots. So while the sufferer is bracing for pain, their brain decides to put on a malfunctioning laser light show. Thanks, nervous system. In theory, a big enough hydraulic press could flatten a diamond, turning the hardest known substance into a very expensive pancake. So next time someone brags about their unbreakable diamond ring, just remind them that a sufficiently angry hydraulic press could turn it into luxury dust in seconds. Montevideo has the longest carnival in the world. While Brazil's carnival is famous, Uruguay's lasts for over 40 days. It includes parades, candomblé drumming, and comedy shows that often poke fun at politicians. If you ever thought partying for a week was impressive, Uruguayans would like you to know they've taken it to the next level. Hunger pangs can make you a temporary genius. Studies suggest that mild hunger boosts brain function, making you more alert and focused. So if you ever solved a complex problem while daydreaming about pizza, congratulations. You just outsmarted yourself on an empty stomach. The bad news? Your IQ plummets the second you get your hands on that pizza. Some trees release a screaming chemical when they're cut down. They emit distress signals in the form of gases, kind of like a final, desperate no that no one hears. So next time you see a deforested area, just know it was probably full of silent, gasping tree screams. Pleasant thought, huh? The Chrysler Building's rooftop once had a hidden speakeasy. During Prohibition, New York's elite partied in a secret bar 800 feet above the city. Imagine sipping illegal cocktails while knowing that one wrong step could send you on a very permanent elevator ride without the elevator. Cutting down trees actually makes some animals lose their minds. Studies show that orangutans and other forest creatures suffer from stress, trauma, and even depression when their homes disappear. Deforestation is so bad that even wildlife needs therapy. The world's most ridiculous handmade teapot is covered in 500,000 diamonds. Because what's tea without the risk of holding a fortune in your hands? Spill a drop, and suddenly your afternoon tea turns into a financial crisis. At that point, you're not sipping tea, you're gripping wealth with shaky hands. A fully functional wooden bicycle exists, made entirely by hand. No metal, just wood, and misplaced confidence. Every ride is a potential splinter hazard. And don't even think about rain, unless you enjoy the feeling of your bike slowly turning into firewood. It's eco-friendly, stylish, and completely impractical. Trees literally talk to each other, and deforestation is basically cutting off their group chat. Through underground fungal networks, trees warn each other about pests and share nutrients. When a forest is wiped out, it's like deleting an entire social network. Except instead of losing cat memes, nature loses critical survival info. Rats learn faster when playing hide and seek, and they love it. Researchers taught rats to play hide and seek, and not only did the rats master the game, but they also squeaked with joy when they found a good hiding spot. Scientists may have been studying animal intelligence, but what they really discovered was that rats are just tiny, furless toddlers with an unhealthy love of sneakiness. A man crocheted a life-sized Ferrari, which is perfect if your dream car involves 0 horsepower and extreme vulnerability to rain. It won't win races, but it will confuse everyone who sees it. Just don't park it near actual cars, or someone might mistake it for a very expensive blanket. Air pollution can mess with your sleep, turning you into a groggy zombie. Fine particles and dirty air inflame your airways and mess up your oxygen intake, making restful sleep feel like a distant dream. So if you're tossing and turning at night, it might not be stress. It could just be the air plotting against you. Polluted air can literally change the weather. Certain types of air pollution can trap heat and increase temperatures, making some cities feel like giant microwaves. So if you're sweating in unbearable heat while breathing in smog, just know that you're being slow cooked by a combination of bad air and human-made climate chaos. The Iraq War officially ended multiple times. The US declared victory in 2003, then fought an insurgency for years, then declared an official withdrawal in 2011, only to send troops back in game with endless DLCs. Every time you thought it was over, another mission popped up. Horned lizards take Crimea River to another level by shooting blood from their eyes. If a predator gets too close, they unleash a horrifying blood spray that not only looks terrifying, but tastes disgusting. It's like Mother Nature decided that regular defense mechanisms weren't dramatic enough. African hairy frogs break their own bones to grow instant claws. If they feel threatened, they snap bones in their toes, forcing sharp, bony claws to puncture their skin. It's like Wolverine, but way grosser. The worst part? Scientists aren't even sure how the claws go back in. Nature is horrifying. A Japanese artist hand-carved a perfectly spherical wooden ball. Why? Nobody knows, but he stared at that thing so long, it probably stared back. It's impressively smooth, but serves no purpose unless rolling it around counts as entertainment. If patience had a shape, it would be this absurdly polished wooden orb. There's a candy that can break your teeth and your spirit. In Scotland, they have a treat called tablet, which is like fudge, but with the density of a brick. It's so sugary that one bite feels like an instant dental appointment waiting to happen. People love it, but honestly, it's less of a candy and more of an edible weapon. Vatican City has a 100% literacy rate, but barely any students. With a population of fewer than 1,000 people, mostly priests, cardinals, and Swiss guards, Vatican City boasts a perfect literacy rate. But here's the catch. There are no schools, no kids, and the students are mostly lifelong scholars in robes. Technically, they've never had to deal with anyone failing a spelling test. Someone knitted a boat, and yes, it actually floats for now. It's seaworthy in the way a desperate last-minute solution is, meaning it's one wave away from being a floating pile of wet yarn. If you ever wanted a boat that doubles as a sweater, congratulations. This is your oddly specific dream come true. Some prisons have luxury suites because why not pamper criminals? In certain countries like Norway, inmates get private rooms with TVs, mini fridges, and even en-suite bathrooms. It's less prison and more budget hotel with really strict checkout policies. Meanwhile, in other places, inmates are packed like sardines and would probably fight over a bent spoon. If this kind of wild reality blows your mind, imagine what else the world is hiding. Subscribe to this channel where we uncover the bizarre, the outrageous, and the downright ridiculous. Don't miss out, or you might end up in one of these hotels just for being uninformed. Alex Barron juggled 11 balls at the same time and reserved his spot in the Guinness Book of World Records. Put that in perspective, most people struggle to handle their phone, coffee, and car keys at the same time. This guy turned gravity into his personal playground and made the rest of us look uncoordinated. Weather can trigger migraines, proving that Mother Nature has a personal vendetta against some people. Sudden changes in barometric pressure can send migraine sufferers straight to a dark room, making them human barometers with a built-in storm warning system. If your friend with migraines starts complaining, grab an umbrella. It's probably about to rain. Bonsai trees don't come from special tiny tree seeds. Any regular tree can become a bonsai if you're patient enough to prune, shape, and mildly torment it for decades. Essentially, bonsai gardening is just aggressive tree parenting, where the goal is to keep it small and aesthetically pleasing while stopping it from realizing its true height potential. It was the first country to legalize recreational marijuana nationwide. In 2013, Uruguay became the first country in the world to fully regulate cannabis from production to sale. Instead of shady street deals, you can now pick up your government-approved weed at a pharmacy. It's basically the country that said, let's handle this like grown-up, while others are still debating. During World War II, a Japanese bonsai master donated a 400-year-old bonsai tree to the United States as a sign of peace. The tree has been thriving at the National Arboretum ever since, probably whispering, I was here before your country even existed to the other plants. It's the most passive-aggressive form of diplomacy ever. A VPN doesn't make you completely invisible. Your internet service provider can still see that you're using one. It's like wearing a disguise but still standing under a spotlight. While VPNs encrypt your data, some companies log user activity, so choosing a trustworthy provider is key unless you enjoy the idea of your private browsing being not so private. In Norway, hikers willingly dangle off a giant rock wedged between two cliffs. Kjærebolten is a boulder stuck over a 3,228-foot drop, and people actually stand on it for photos, because standing on solid ground is just too boring. One strong gust of wind, epic Instagram moment, could turn into a free-fall experience. Smart irrigation systems use AI and weather forecasts to decide when and how much to water plants. Some of them even connect to apps, so farmers can hydrate their fields while sitting on the couch watching TV. Imagine a future where your tomatoes text you, complaining about dehydration. At this rate, we're not too far from that reality. Hydroponics allows plants to grow without soil, just floating in nutrient-rich water. This method uses 90% less water than traditional farming and can grow crops almost anywhere, including underground, in shipping containers, and even on space stations. Yes, astronauts could one day enjoy fresh lettuce while orbiting Earth, proving once and for all that salad is inescapable. Fog harvesting literally pulls water from the air. Mesh nets trap moisture from fog, collecting it as liquid water. This technique is used in dry regions where rain is a luxury, making it possible to farm in places that should be impossible. Nature already gave spiders this idea millions of years ago, but humans are just now catching up. Underground irrigation pipes prevent water from evaporating before plants can use it. Instead of spraying water into the air where half of it disappears, these pipes deliver it straight to the roots, and it's basically a secret underground water delivery service for plants, ensuring they stay hydrated without wasting a drop, unlike humans who still miss their mouths while drinking from bottles. The Malaysian exploding ant has a defense mechanism that sounds like something from a bad sci-fi movie. It self-destructs. When threatened, it flexes its abdomen so hard that it bursts, spraying toxic goo everywhere. It's the insect equivalent of saying, if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. Opossums have the ultimate fake-it-till-you-make-it survival strategy. They play dead so convincingly that even their heartbeat slows down. They release a foul odor, their body goes limp, and they stay that way for hours. It's the animal kingdom's most dramatic, Oscar-worthy performance, all to avoid becoming dinner. Your nose acts as a built-in pollution detector, but only to a point. While it can sense strong odors from pollutants, it completely fails against invisible toxins like carbon monoxide. So basically, your nose is great at identifying stinky garbage, but completely useless when it comes to detecting the truly dangerous stuff. Hand snapping was once believed to ward off evil spirits in some cultures. Imagine trying to scare away a ghost with the sound of your fingers clicking, because clearly nothing says "begone demon" like a mildly aggressive jazz rhythm. Demon might enjoy the rhythm rather than be horrified by it. Some people can snap their fingers at speeds over 20 times per second. That's not just a snap, that's a mini sonic boom in your hand. If they ever weaponized this ability, we'd have snap-powered machine guns instead of traditional firearms. And some people can become human machine guns. The world's most expensive wig, made from real human hair, was once sold for over $10,000. Imagine paying that much just to have a portable, luxurious mop on your head, only for the wind to snatch it away like a dramatic telenovela plot twist. Some royal crowns are so heavy with gold and jewels that wearing them for long periods can cause neck pain. Basically, being a monarch is just an expensive way of giving yourself a chiropractor bill. Who knew ruling a kingdom came with the same risks as bad posture at a desk job? Some extreme germaphobes refuse to touch public door handles, going as far as wearing gloves year-round. One businessman in New York reportedly uses his elbow, knees, and even his foot to open doors. If he ever encounters a revolving door, he might have to accept his fate and live in the building forever. Chess boxing is a real sport where competitors alternate between playing chess and punching each other in the face. One moment, they're deep in thought, planning their next move, and the next, they're getting their brain cells rattled. It's the only sport where you can win by checkmate or knockout, whichever comes first. Ferret legging is a competition where participants shove live ferrets into their pants and see who can endure the longest without screaming in terror. The ferrets have sharp teeth, bad attitudes, and zero understanding of personal space. The record is over 5 hours, which raises the question, why? Just why? There's a world record for the most soap used in a single hand wash. In 2012, a man in Japan covered his hands in nearly a gallon of liquid soap, turning his fingers into a foamy nightmare. He then realized he had no way to turn the faucet on without slipping. The most expensive nail polish in the world contains real black diamonds and costs over $250,000 per bottle. That means if you accidentally chip your nail, you're not just losing polish, you're shedding tiny, overpriced gemstones like a ridiculously wealthy reptile. In ancient Egypt, onions were so respected that they were used as currency and even placed in the tombs of pharaohs. Imagine making it to the afterlife expecting riches and instead finding your tomb filled with vegetables. The pharaohs must have been thrilled to discover that their eternal treasure was just a giant pile of onion rings. Some designer handbags are made with actual gold-plated hardware and diamond-studded logos, costing more than a house. So if you're ever in financial trouble, just sell your purse and live inside a slightly cheaper one instead. In 17th century Russia, a famine led to widespread cannibalism. Things got so bad that officials had to warn people not to eat their own relatives. They even put up public signs that basically said, "Please stop snacking on your neighbor." When the government has to remind you that people aren't dinner, you know it's bad. Fevers are like your body's version of setting itself on fire to fight off invaders. Your immune system basically decides that the best way to kill germs is to turn you into a human radiator. Too bad it doesn't come with a mild warmth setting, just full-blown furnace mode. Extreme ironing exists, and yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. People lug ironing boards up mountains into the ocean, or even while skydiving just to flatten a shirt. If your biggest thrill in life is making sure your pants have perfect creases at 10,000 feet, congratulations, you've found your calling. In medieval times, being too clean was suspicious. People believed bathing too much could make you vulnerable to disease or worse, witchcraft. Some nobles avoided baths for months, using perfumes to mask the stench. If you think your gym socks smell bad, imagine an entire castle full of unwashed royalty. Wife carrying is an actual race where men carry their wives through obstacle courses, often over mud pits and water traps. If they drop their wives, they're out of luck. The prize? The wife's weight in beer. Nothing says love and teamwork like surviving an obstacle course for free booze. If you want to witness the ultimate test of marriage and questionable life choices, check out our video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because who doesn't love a sport that combines romance, athleticism, and potential back injuries? In ancient times, some royals wore bejeweled shoes, so heavy that they had to be carried to avoid walking in them. Imagine flexing your wealth so hard that basic movement becomes impossible. At that point, you're not wearing shoes. You're just dragging around tiny treasure chests on your feet. Onions were once prescribed as medicine for everything from colds to baldness. Medieval doctors genuinely believed that rubbing onion juice on your scalp would make your hair grow back. Spoiler alert, it didn't. But it did guarantee that anyone trying this treatment smelled so bad that no one got close enough to notice their hair loss. Some medieval doctors believed fevers were caused by an excess of hot bodily humor, so they treated them by making patients bleed. That's right, if you were already burning up, they thought draining you like a leaky juice box would help. Shockingly, this didn't work, but it did make sure you had bigger problems than just a fever. In the Irish potato famine, millions starved while food exports continued from Ireland to England. That's like being locked in a bakery, watching someone carry away loaves of bread while you chew on your shoe. The government called it market efficiency. The starving people probably had a few different words for it. In some parts of the world, snapping is used instead of clapping to show appreciation. It's common in poetry slams and theaters, but imagine if entire stadiums switched to snapping instead of cheering. The sound of thousands of people snapping at once would feel less like encouragement and more like an approaching swarm of locusts. The highest recorded fever in history was 115 degrees Fahrenheit. The person survived, proving that humans are way more heat resistant than microwaved leftovers. At that temperature, you're basically a walking, talking oven. But somehow, your brain still refuses to remember where you left your car keys. Scientists discovered that snapping produces one of the fastest rotational movements in the human body, faster than some sports motion. So technically, snapping could be an Olympic event. Imagine the drama of a gold medal match. Two athletes locked in an intense snap-off, hands moving so fast they break the sound barrier. The world's heaviest onion weighed over 18 pounds, which is roughly the size of a small dog. This monster onion could make enough onion rings to feed an entire football team, or enough tears to make them all cry before kickoff. Somewhere, an ogre is very jealous. Some ancient Roman glassware was made with gold and silver nanoparticles, which means it could change color depending on the lighting. Imagine sipping wine from a goblet that shifts from red to green, like a medieval mood ring, only to realize that your ancestors were flexing their nanotech skills 2,000 years before we even understood it. In the 1800s, some people believed drinking from uranium glass would give them health benefits. Yes, uranium, the radioactive stuff. They thought the eerie green glow meant it was special, but in reality, they were basically sipping tea from a nuclear hazard. It's a miracle they didn't start glowing themselves. Scientists have created glass that isn't actually glass at all. Some ultra-hard materials, like metallic glass, are stronger than steel and can be bent without breaking. It's glass that hit the gym and decided it was done being fragile. Proof that even inanimate objects can have a glow-up. During China's Great Famine, things got so bad that people started reporting bird nest soup without the soup or the nest. Desperate villagers climbed trees to eat raw baby birds before they could fly away. Meanwhile, government officials kept insisting that everything was fine because nothing says thriving economy like fighting sparrows for lunch. North Korea's 1990s famine got so extreme that people reportedly ate tree bark and grass. Some even made mud cakes out of dirt and water to trick their stomachs into feeling full. If Michelin ever reviewed famine food, this would get 0 stars, unless you're a termite, in which case it's a buffet. There's a glass so strong that it can survive a hammer smash but will shatter instantly if you drop a tiny pebble on it. It's called Prince Rupert's Drop, and it's the diva of the glass world. Impervious to brute force but completely undone by the lightest touch. Just like some people's egos. In China, dust storms sometimes carry industrial pollutants, turning the air into a toxic soup. Imagine stepping outside and getting hit with a combo of desert sand and factory waste, like Mother Nature's version of an aggressively unpleasant seasoning. The only thing missing is a giant label saying, "Do not inhale. Side effects may include lung despair." There's a cupboard in England that's been locked for over 150 years because no one can find the key. It sits in a museum, taunting historians like a Victorian escape room. What's inside? Gold? Ghosts? Just someone's forgotten tea set? At this point, breaking it open feels like a national emergency. In the 1700s, some rich Europeans had panic cupboards filled with emergency wigs. Yes, because nothing says crisis preparedness like an emergency hairpiece. If a guest arrived unexpectedly, they'd dash to the cupboard, slap on a fresh wig, and pretend they hadn't just been caught looking like a medieval mess. The US Census didn't allow people to identify as more than one race until the year 2000. Before that, biracial individuals had to choose only one racial identity, as if their ancestry could be neatly boxed into a single category. This change finally acknowledged the complexity of multiracial heritage. A hidden cupboard in a Dutch church once housed a fully functional pub. It was disguised as a storage space, but opened the doors and, surprise, instant speakeasy. Forget illegal basements. These priests had a next-level dedication to holy spirits, both divine and distilled. Interracial marriage was illegal in many states until 1967, when the Supreme Court ruled in Loving versus Virginia that such bans were unconstitutional. Before that, marrying outside one's racial category could lead to prison sentences. The ruling not only legalized interracial marriage, but also challenged the entire concept of racial purity laws. Deforestation is so extreme that some areas of the planet experience phantom forests. This happens when old satellite images still show dense greenery, but in reality, it's been chopped down. So, somewhere out there, a tree that no longer exists is still haunting Google Earth. Some ancient Chinese cupboards were designed to trap thieves inside. They'd sneak in to steal valuables, shut the door behind them, and boom, instantly turned into self-locking jail cells. Imagine breaking into a house thinking you hit the jackpot, only to realize you're now part of the furniture. In a bizarre case of cupboard betrayal, one 19th century wardrobe in France collapsed and took an entire wall with it. Turns out it had been secretly holding up part of the house for years. Imagine casually opening a cupboard for snacks, only for your whole house to say, "Well, guess I'm done." Ancient Rome experienced famines where people paid more for rotten fish guts than a senator's bribe money. At one point, starving citizens started raiding grain ships like pirates, because when your choices are steal wheat or eat your sandal, piracy starts looking like a noble career path. The world record for the longest tap dance marathon is over 24 hours. That's an entire day of non-stop foot slapping, ankle abuse, and probably enough blisters to make a podiatrist cry. At that point, it's less of a dance and more of an endurance test of sheer foot-based stubbornness. The weapons of mass destruction were never found in the US war on Iran. The main reason for the invasion was to eliminate Iraq's alleged stockpile of chemical and nuclear weapons. After years of searching, no stockpiles were found. It was like sending the world's most expensive search party on a wild goose chase. Except the goose never existed. Some South American folk dances require dancers to stomp so hard that they've cracked wooden floors. These dancers aren't just moving to the music. They're waging war against the ground. It's like Mother Earth personally insulted them, and they decided the only solution was rhythmic revenge through aggressively powerful footwork. Breathing polluted air is like taking up smoking without the commitment. In some heavily polluted cities, just living there is equivalent to puffing a pack of cigarettes a day. So technically, some people are chain smokers without ever touching a cigarette, proving that secondhand pollution is a real thing. Competitive Irish dancers keep their upper bodies completely still while their feet move at lightning speed. This makes them look like they're possessed from the waist down, as if their legs have decided to rebel and start their own dance revolution, while the rest of their body is trapped in an invisible straitjacket. In the 18th century, French aristocrats took competitive foot dancing so seriously that some dancers insured their feet for absurd amounts of money. Imagine explaining to an insurance agent that your biggest asset is your ability to aggressively tap your way through a ballroom without spraining an ankle. If you want more bizarre historical gems like this, tap dance your way over to our YouTube channel. Hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. No insurance required. The largest dust storm ever recorded on Mars was so big it covered the entire planet for weeks. Imagine waking up one day and realizing your whole world is now just one giant sandpaper nightmare. Meanwhile, NASA's rovers had to sit in timeout mode, waiting for Mars to stop throwing its intergalactic tantrum. Pens that taste like food were a real thing once. Some novelty pens are scented to smell like chocolate, strawberries, or even pizza. The problem? People instinctively put them in their mouths and get very disappointed. The good news is that it at least helps students stay awake in boring classes, constantly sniffing their own pens. In 1971, an astronaut on Apollo 15 almost died from a dropped hammer. While testing Galileo's theory by dropping a hammer and a feather on the moon, astronaut David Scott nearly lost control of his oxygen supply. The experiment was cool, but imagine making it all the way to the moon just to get taken out by basic gravity. The 1930s Dust Bowl was so intense that static electricity in the air could knock people unconscious. Farmers had to shake hands with metal objects before touching each other to avoid getting zapped into oblivion. Nothing says, "Nice to meet you," like a handshake that feels like a taser attack. Octopuses can edit their own genes. These squishy escape artists don't just outsmart predators, they rewrite their own RNA to adapt to different temperatures. Meanwhile, humans can barely decide what to wear when the weather changes. If octopuses ever figure out how to breathe on land, we're doomed. Crows remember faces and hold grudges like vengeful soap opera villains. If a human wrongs them, crows will not only remember that person's face, but they'll also pass down their grudge to future generations. Imagine your great-great-grandchild getting dive-bombed by a crow because you stole a French fry in 2024. That's next-level generational trauma. Lombard Street in San Francisco looks like a car's worst nightmare. With 8 hairpin turns packed into a single block, it was designed this way because early cars couldn't handle steep inclines. Now it's just a glorified amusement park ride for tourists who enjoy testing their brakes and their patience. Ebenezer Place in Scotland is so short it barely exists. At just over 6 feet long, it holds the world record for the shortest street. It's literally just the front door of a single building. Imagine getting directions to an address here. You'd probably walk right past it and not even notice. Parliament Street in England is so narrow, it's basically a hallway. At just 25 inches wide at its thinnest point, it's like a medieval alleyway designed exclusively for people who skipped lunch. If you've eaten too many fish and chips, you might have to find another route. Waitomo glowworm caves in New Zealand look magical until you realize they're full of larvae spit. The beautiful blue glow is actually bioluminescent mucus, secreted by hungry larvae to trap insects. So if you ever visit, just remember, you're admiring a ceiling covered in glowing bug drool. There's a cave in Vietnam so big, it has its own weather system. Hang Son Giong is so massive that clouds form inside it. It also has rivers, jungles, and probably enough space to house an entire lost civilization. Meanwhile, most people are still trying to find an apartment bigger than a shoebox. Yonge Street in Canada used to be the world's longest street until someone changed the definition. At one point, it stretched over 1,000 miles, but some grumpy cartographers decided a chunk of it was actually a highway. So now it's just a really long road with an identity crisis. Baldwin Street in New Zealand defies physics and common sense. It's the world's steepest street with an incline so intense that mail carriers had to switch to staircases because their vans kept rolling away. It's a perfect place to test your brakes or your ability to survive a downhill tumble. There's a cave in Venezuela that is permanently haunted by lightning. Cueva del Rayo, located near Catatumbo, experiences near-constant lightning storms. It's the only cave on Earth where you can get electrocuted just for sightseeing. Nature really went all out to make sure no one felt safe camping there. Some rooftops are so dangerous that even professional stunt performers avoid them. In Hong Kong, daredevil rooftopers risk their lives climbing skyscrapers without safety gear, all for the perfect Instagram shot. One slip and they're auditioning for a real-life gravity experiment. Spoiler alert, gravity always wins. Sparkling water was once considered a medical miracle. In the 18th century, people believed carbonated water could cure anything from scurvy to depression. If that were true, modern therapy would just be handing out bottles of fizzy water instead of actual advice. Sadly, all it really cures is thirst, with a side of aggressive burping. The first artificially carbonated water was a failed attempt at recreating a holy spring. In 1777, Joseph Priestley, the guy who discovered oxygen, accidentally invented soda water while trying to mimic naturally fizzy mineral springs. Instead of divine healing properties, he just made bubbles. And so humanity's obsession with paying extra for fancy water was born. There's an egg that can bounce like a rubber ball. The eggs of some amphibians, like the frog species, are so jelly-like that they can survive being dropped without breaking. Imagine cracking one open for breakfast and watching it bounce right off your pan like a rebellious pancake. Carbonated water can dissolve your teeth very, very slowly. The slight acidity from carbonation can wear down enamel, but you'd have to drink absurd amounts for it to matter. So unless you're chugging sparkling water like it's an Olympic sport, your teeth are safe. Meanwhile, soda is laughing in the corner, ready to do real damage. Some eggs are blue thanks to a virus. Certain chickens lay blue eggs because of a harmless ancient virus that messed with their DNA. So, the next time you see a fancy blue egg, just remember it's basically the result of a long-forgotten chicken flu that never went away. The world's largest egg came from an extinct bird that made ostriches look tiny. The elephant bird of Madagascar laid eggs that were over a foot long and could hold the same volume as 150 chicken eggs. If these birds still existed, breakfast omelets would be a week-long commitment. Their sparkling water so naturally carbonated it explodes. In Italy, there's a spring called Sorgente Vitas that produces water under so much pressure that it bursts out of the ground like a geyser. Locals literally have to bottle it carefully or risk getting hit by nature's most unnecessarily violent soft drink. And that's a wrap on these mind-bending facts. Which one shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more bizarre and fascinating content. Until next time, stay curious and maybe double check before standing near a radioactive lake.